Hey everybody, welcome to my studio. I am sitting in front of my prop rack. This is where I have my bolsters, my sandbags, my blankets, my blocks, a basket, a belt, and then the yoga mats at the bottom. Extra yoga mats can be a great prop as well. Over here, I have crystals, I have aromatherapy, I have little inspirational things. So when you come into my studio, all of these are available to you to use and to enjoy. Now, let's talk about a home practice. And probably my number one prop to have would be a block, actually, two blocks. These blocks can be used whether you practice on the floor, you have a standing practice, or you practice in a chair, which is where I've sort of been practicing the last year. And I find it to be really amazing, especially when we use props. So let's talk about the block. These are foam blocks. They are 8 inches, 6 inches, and then 4 inches. So what's really cool is that we can bring the floor up to us 8 inches. We can stack two of them, and now we have 16 inches. Here's my floor. I can just rest my hand there and extend my arm. So, what blocks do is that they provide assistance in deepening the sensation of the pose. I am going to argue until I take my last breath that props are not for beginners. They're not for people who can't do yoga. Props are to enhance and supplement your practice, and they should be used in a way to complement the sensation that you want to feel. So, if you want to feel an opening, through your side body. Okay, so through your ribs. You want to feel an opening through your side body. Without the blocks, in a seated position in a chair, if you reach for the floor, look what has happened to my side body. And then my arm goes up. Now, if I use a block or two, I'm going to hold my hand onto the floor that I've risen up. I have one block this way and one block vertical. And now all of a sudden, I have the opening through my side body and I'm getting that extension. So blocks bring the floor to us. They help create length so that we don't compress as much. If you're not able to forward fold to touch your toes, as everybody thinks that's what yoga is about, you can bring the blocks right in front of your feet. And now all of a sudden, I'm reaching down towards my toes. The blocks brought the floor a little higher, and I'm getting an amazing stretch through my back. Okay, I've got a nice straight spine. Now, without the blocks, I'm rounding, I'm squishing my belly. I do feel a nice stretch, but I'm not getting that extension and length that I'm looking for. So, blocks bring the floor higher. Another way you can use blocks is for alignment when it comes to shoulders and where we want to be in space. So if I was to reach my arms above my head in what we know as mountain pose, you can see my arms are separated. They look a little bit like a letter Y. Now, using a block, I have my elbows, shoulders, wrists, and fingertips all in one long line, creating a different sensation. I feel a stretch through my triceps. I feel a little bit more engagement there. I'm not holding on to the block hard at all. It's just resting between my palms. And now look what happens when I hinge over. My head remains between my biceps and I have beautiful alignment. Now, alignment is important when we're looking at creating the lines and the shapes in our body that we want to enhance a sensation. Arms up, I can still hinge, but you can see my arms are separate. It's a different sensation. Not right, not wrong, different. Okay, so using the block, we create length and lines. Without the block, we have a little softer, a little looser, a little more flowy. It's all good. But I encourage you to use the blocks to just learn the different sensations in the body and how it feels. Now, I like to come back to the blocks when I feel like maybe I'm not getting the sensation that I'd like to have in a pose like mountain pose. So I use the blocks for a few rounds and I'm like, oh yeah. Now, once I remember what that sensation feels like, then I can extend my arms above my head without the block and engage the parts of my body that I want to engage. Triceps, back of the shoulder, those rhomboids tucked down and back. I want to feel that. But if I didn't have the tool, the teaching aid to show me what that feels like, I might never have that sensation. So I like to use blocks just to tweak a little bit the sensation that I'm looking for. Now, another way you can use the blocks is to place it between your legs, not on the knee joint. We never want to put pressure right on the actual joint, but just above the knee. And that's keeping my legs in alignment. Without the block, tendency to splay the legs outward, belly sinks in, posture's not great. Putting the block between my legs immediately invites me to sit taller because I have to put a little pressure there, otherwise the block's going to fall. So it's a teaching tool to be like, okay, here I am sitting in an upright position. My legs are slightly engaged. Now, if you're only practicing in a chair, you're not going to ever really feel that sensation of standing mountain pose. So we have to recreate that in a seated position. So putting the block between the legs, we get that engagement, belly's drawn in, heart is lifted, arms go high. Now, if you have two blocks, you have the block between your legs, block between your arms, you're in a beautiful mountain pose. How cool is that? Now, without the block, we have a tendency to be a little bit sloppier. Not a big deal, but a little bit sloppier. Two blocks on top of your knees, elbows to the block, hands together. Now, all of a sudden, we have this length happening. We get a beautiful stretch through the back of the body, upper back, shoulder blades, biceps. Bring it in, press it down. Now, if we were to try that in a seated position without blocks, we're going to smush the belly. We're not going to have that length on the front side. Now, the final way I like to use blocks, and there's a million ways, but think about bringing the floor up either side, creating the alignment that we're looking for a deeper sensation. And then the final way is especially useful if you are living in a wheelchair, you're confined to a wheelchair, and you're not able to hold your trunk up well for long periods of time. Now, even if you are not confined to a wheelchair, when we sit in a chair, we have a tendency to get comfortable, right? Most of us watch TV this way, do our hobbies this way, read whatever. So we have this curve in our spine, belly gets a little sloppy, chest falls in, we're not able to take as deep of a breath. So try what happens when you just sit slouched and you attempt to take a big breath. There's not as much space for the lungs to inflate. Now, if we sit tall, all of a sudden our lungs have more capacity because we're not compressing them, but it gets hard to sit upright all day long every day. Here comes a block. If you place the block between your shoulder blades, and I turn my chair so that you can see, and then you lean back on the block, look at that straight spine with no work. I'm not having to engage my core to keep my body upright, but I have this beautiful long spine. Now, as I've worked with people who live in wheelchairs, I find that the feedback that I get from them is placing a block or a pillow behind their shoulder blades to support their spine immediately changes their experience, not just in a yoga practice, but while they're sitting watching TV or even eating dinner, right? So the digestive system is more open. They're able to digest their foods better simply by creating a tall spine. Now, I read years ago that cortisol, that hormone that we have in our body that helps to trigger that fight or flight sensation, we need it. But if we're in a state of being where our cortisol is always high, we're constantly in fight or flight, one of the most effective and quickest ways to reduce the cortisol is to have a straight spine. When we slouch, our cortisol increases. We're less resilient to stress. We're less resilient to the triggers that occur in our daily life. We don't handle life as well. But if we learn to have amazing posture, our cortisol actually lowers throughout the day, and we are more emotionally resilient. We're less triggered by the things going on in our life and in the world. So, placing a block behind your chair while you're hanging out watching television, whether you're in a wheelchair or not, just pay attention. I guarantee you, if you were to put a block behind you, let's say for the next week, while you're doing your hobbies, reading, working on the computer, watching television, and you had a straight spine, the brain body connection would then say, when the block goes away and after a week and you find yourself here, it will feel unnatural. You'll want to be here. When I first started practicing yoga, I lived like this all the time. And as I learned what this feels like, now I rarely slouch. And if I do, I catch myself immediately because it feels unnatural. Just like the breathing that we learn. When we first show up to yoga, we don't even realize that we've probably been breathing backwards for decades, meaning we breathe in and we pull in and breathe out and we that's not how we're designed to breathe. We're designed to breathe with a full belly on the inhale, expanding, and then on the exhale, we release and soften. But we have to undo that through awareness. So try my challenge of awareness, sitting with a block behind you for a week, and just see how that changes the brain body connection when after the week is over, you naturally want to have better posture and you've trained your brain and your body to create that. All right, those are my favorite ways to use blocks. You can get these blocks anywhere. You can buy them in big discount stores. You can shop online. In my Amazon shop, I have my favorites. They come in all colors. I went with an olive green to match my purple yoga mats in my studio and my orange bolsters. Those are my three favorite colors: orange, purple, and green. So take a minute, shop for some blocks, use them in your practice, use them in your free time, hobby time for a week. Tell me what you think. And I'll see you soon for more tips on how to use props for your yoga practice. Take care. Have a great day. Bye.